How's it, guys? My name is John, and really it's groovy to be with you guys, to be able to speak to City Hill Manzim Todi this morning. Tim and the leadership team asked me just to prepare a short little devotional for you guys. My wife and I from Josie, we lead a church called Center Church, and we always look over the fence of what you guys are doing. Love to see the stuff that you guys are up to as a church. And so it's a super privilege for me to be able to share with you this morning. What I want to just quickly do with us, if I can this morning, is talk about how do we make the most of the season that we're in. And I think it's really fitting right now because we can feel a little bit, and I've spoken to a few people over the season, well, many people, and a few of them have said that they felt like the season is a little bit of a pause in their life where they can't do anything, they can't make the most of it, and so they're waiting on the world to change, to quote a John Mayer song. They're waiting for things to get better or to change or something to happen, and then they're going to make the most of life again. But Jesus never stops. And that's the amazing thing about him. He doesn't have pause seasons. He doesn't have stop seasons. Every season for him is a go forward season. If we look at Jesus's life, what was amazing about him was he was happy to be in an on pause season for 30 years. I wonder if he was sitting there while he was busy doing the carpentry, as a young man, and just thinking, one day I'm going to perform all these miracles. I'm going to walk on water. I'm going to do all this amazing stuff. But for now, I'm just busy shaving down this wardrobe. Jesus had this incredible patience and made the most of every season. And in essence, those 30 years of preparation, or for whatever reason it was, set him up for those 3 years of being incredibly effective. And so for us, how do we not view the season that we're in? How do we not despise the season that we're in and just live constantly pushing for the next season and never learning why God has got us in the particular season that we've got in? And I don't want to be pat about this or trite about it. I think for some of us, we've experienced some really hard things during the season. It's been rough, and we've seen some stuff, and perhaps you've lost loved ones. Perhaps we've had someone in our church who lost their life to COVID during this time. So it has been really rough, and I'm not wanting to just blow things off and come up with these stupid explanations for everything. But I do see that there are specific things we can learn during a season like this. So let me quickly go through them. I think the first one we learn in a tough season, or a season where it's not going according to our plan, is humility. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 1, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we are experiencing in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we'd received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead." And this is the thing, the reason it's so important to learn this lesson of humility and for God to take us through these seasons where we learn to rely on Him. When it's tough, we look at our own hands and we say, I can't get out of this myself. I have to rely on God. I think inside of all of us, we want to know that there's something bigger than ourselves. We want to know that there's someone who's got a plan. When God created us, it's like He left His thumbprint on us. And even in our sin and our fallenness, that thumbprint is still there. And when we don't know, and we're tortured by it, and we want to know, and I see people running around and asking all kinds of spiritual questions, but trying to deny God and wanting to be their own person. And the saddest thing is, because we were created by God, when we run away from God, we actually run away even from our own identity. And is it any reason why, as the world becomes more and more arrogant, as people walk away from God, that people at the same time are becoming more and more lost? And so God takes us through these seasons to teach us to rely on Him and to lean into Him. And in that, finding ourselves in Him, our identity settled. It's a beautiful thing. The next quick one is refining. 2 Peter 1 says, "For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, to goodness knowledge, to knowledge self-control, to self-control perseverance, to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. If you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive." And this is the other thing, right? In a season where it's going a bit tough and we feel like we're just skidding and it's like the car's just skidding and we're in the mud and we're not going anywhere. We can feel unproductive and we can feel ineffective. And God's plan is always that over time, as we grow and as we mature, we become more effective, not less effective. That we become more in love with Jesus, not less in love with Jesus. That we become more in love with the church, not less in love with the church. But that happens as God begins to work in us and refine us. And He begins to sharpen us and He begins to give us wisdom and give us knowledge. One of the things I've seen in my own life is one of the best cures for stupidity is time and honesty. As time goes on, I realize how stupid I am. When I make a few stupid decisions, when I was young, I thought I had all the answers to the world's problems. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing there's a reason the world has the problems it does. It's because it's not leaning on Jesus. I didn't have the answers, but He certainly does. And when I'm not prepared to learn from the season I'm in, I'm doomed to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I would even, be so bold as to say, if we're struggling with same stuff over and over, perhaps we should look back and see that some of the seasons God's taken us through, we're bypassing it. Paul says, I have learned to be content in every situation. He didn't say, I have become content because I dodged, because I've learned a way around, or I've learned to avoid, or I've learned to deny. He says, I've actually learned. And learning means going through the situation. And for some of us, I think we need to learn to be content. Because God's plan ultimately is that we put in less effort for more fruit as we become stronger and sharper and wiser in what He's got for us. So the first one's humility, second one's refining, the third one is faith. 1 Peter 1, Peter writes, In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And what's fascinating to me, I think, for all of us as Christians, I want to grow in my faith. And what I mean by that is, I want to see God do stuff, right? I want to see God work through me. If God wants to perform miracles through me, I want to see that. I want God to work in my finances. I want God to work in my business. I want God to work in my family. I want God to work in my marriage. I don't want to live a normal life. I want to live the supernatural life where the power of God is flowing through me. But at the same time, I'm afraid. So what do? I live in this little safety zone and never step out into a place where I actually need God. And therefore my faith doesn't grow. And so what God does is He puts us in these circumstances, and He takes us through seasons where we can get out of it ourselves, I guess, through our own plans. But what He wants us to do in those seasons is to jump onto Him and to ride through the season in faith and suddenly go, wow, this is incredible. I often look at Peter, right? People mock Peter because he took a few steps on the water, and then he looked down at the water and he began to sink, and Jesus grabbed him. And I think the guys who should be getting criticized are the other disciples in the boat. They never ever stepped out. The only guy outside of Jesus who ever walked on water was Peter. And so what if he sunk after a while? He's the only other guy who actually did it. And friends, I know it's an old metaphor, but what we stay in the boat and we keep it safe, and we play it safe with our time and our energy, and our finance and our gifts, and we just live this little nice packaged life, little freeze-dried life. You can just take it out like a microwave meal and stick it in the fridge, and it's bland and it's tasteless. Jesus has called us to this life where we hear His voice and we know that He's real because He's actively at work in us in these seasons that are a little bit odd. And the last one is to help others. Hebrews 4:15 says, We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who has been tested in every way, yet was without sin. And here's the thing. Unless I've been through tough times, I'm not going to be able to sympathize and to care for others when they go through tough times. And even Jesus Himself, for 30 years, He walked on the earth and He saw people going through tough times. He saw people struggling. He experienced stuff Himself. And so we see when Jesus begins to minister at 30 years old, there's an incredible compassion about Him and love and care for people because He's seen what people have been through. And friends, for ourselves, sometimes we go through these tough seasons because God is wanting to show us. He's wanting to give us a heart of compassion for others because, can I tell you this, the world doesn't need any more arrogant Christians sitting on their high horses pointing fingers and thinking they know better than everybody else. Jesus knows better, but we are broken and we are weak people outside of Jesus. And I want to leave you with this thought about this thing for others. My life and my relationship with Jesus is like a mirror. And sometimes that's the only mirror that people can see. And it's not a mirror necessarily of Jesus. It's a mirror that people can look into and go, I could have that same relationship with Jesus. Because Jesus is perfect, but my relationship with Him, I've got something to do with that. And so I wonder if people look at my relationship with Jesus, if they think, I really want that. Wow, look, John got through this. He sailed through this. He endured this. He's not just up when it's up and down when it's down. He just motors through stuff. What on earth is going on in his life? I want that relationship with whoever He's got the relationship. So hopefully that's encouraging for you guys. Go for it in the tricky seasons. God's at work in the tricky seasons, doing amazing stuff, building humility, refining us, building our faith, and giving us a heart to be able to help others. So thank you so much for having me join you guys, and yeah, hope to catch up soon sometime.